I would like to start on time. You're already running a little late, but I have the pleasure of introducing our provost, Dr. Ihab Abdurrahman, who's going to say a few words, and then we'll have our keynote speaker. Dr. Ihab?
Good afternoon. I'm extremely happy to be here today to deliver a few words on the occasion of the Center of Learning Teaching 15th anniversary. CLT's milestone is even more commendable in light of the fact that it has seen 4 presidents, namely President Gerhardt, Arnold, Anderson, and Richard Doney, and 7 provosts, myself included, namely Sullivan, Anderson, Haroon, Sha'rawi, El-Gamal, and Sidqi. Despite these changes in the leadership, and with them changes in institutional and academic priorities, CLT has not only survived, but flourished. CLT's successes are numerous, and are due largely to the leadership of the center's founding director, Dr. Aziz Al-Lawzi, and her dedicated team that I see them around the room today. And while occasions such as this tend to focus on the past accomplishments, I want to focus on the future. The work of CLT and Dr. Al-Lawzi, strength in the end and dedication to promoting quality teaching, plays an integral role in my academic vision of my tenure as provost. A strong teaching culture is integral to our identity and success as an institution. Our identity is tied to being a liberal arts institution, and we must couple our course offerings with the liberal education pedagogy, and this is why CLT is so important. I want CLT to be the change agent for the university. I want CLT to continue to grow so that it becomes the hub for teaching, not only at AUC, not only in Cairo or Egypt, but the hub for teaching and teaching innovation in the region. I have no doubt that this is possible. CLT has been personally beneficial to my own teaching. After my first semester of teaching here at AUC, my students' evaluation were not as I wanted them to be. And I literally ran to CLT. And after working with their dedicated team, I went on to win both Excellence in Teaching Award and Innovative Teaching Award from CLT. That I was able to do so in such a relatively short period of time, and when compared to such excellent colleagues, is due in large part to CLT. I'm proof of their methods, and I pledge my support of their work as provost. I congratulate the Center of Learning and Teaching on this milestone, and I look forward to witnessing the center's future success. Congratulations, CLT. Thank you.
Before our next speaker, yes? We have a little short video of the, I won't say the history, but a little memento of the CLT. So I will sit down and enjoy the view too. When I was hired to establish a Center for Learning and Teaching at AUC, the president of the university at the time, President Gerhardt, did a very smart thing. He sent me to visit several universities, several liberal arts universities, and I came back with a lot of ideas, and some of them have become, you know, what I would consider today some of the success programs.
I joined the AUC in fall 2006. At the end of that semester, I looked at my student evaluation and they were really, really bad. At that time, the center introduced me to different teaching methodologies that I was not aware of them. CLT actually introduced me to ways to engage my students inside the classroom and outside the classroom. A few years later, I won AUC Excellence in Teaching Award, and I also won the CLT Innovative Teaching Award.
Actually, it started quite small. However, under its able and competent founding director, Dr. Elozi, it has continued and is continuing to flourish.
My experience with the CLT started right at the very beginning, and one of the most attractive things about it was its philosophy, which focuses on learner-centered teaching, hence the name Center for Learning and Teaching. The experience of giving workshops at CLT has enriched my own professional development. It's the trainer that learns from the participants, and therefore you learn every time.
The events of CLT were the workshops, the institute, were great venues for those of us who are interested in exploring new ways of doing things in teaching and learning to come together and share experiences and ideas.
What I like best about CLT is the level of professionalism and dedication. Everyone there excels at their discipline or their craft, and they're extremely dedicated to helping enhance learning and teaching here at AUC. It's just obvious when you walk into CLT that there's buzzing creativity and there's enthusiasm for what they do. It's my favorite place to be on campus, actually.
One of the things that I've really liked about CLT over the years is the coming together of faculty from many different disciplines across campus in the CLT workshops and other seminars that they've held. The CLT STAs have been very helpful to me over the years in incorporating new technologies into my courses. And I appreciate the fact that they'll come to your office and let you use your own computer. And when I've had other colleagues who are struggling with technology, I've always recommended STAs to them, and they've found them very helpful as well.
In how I teach, CLT has helped me look at the process from the student's perspective to focus more on tuning my teaching to how students learn as opposed to how I want to teach them the content that I'm delivering to them.
The way I look at the CLT, it's the change agent in AUC. This is the center that introduces new teaching methodologies to our faculty. It touches the life of our faculty directly, and it touches indirectly the life of every student on campus. I would like to see the CLT grow bigger. I'd like to see a CLT to be the hub of research in teaching and learning at AUC. I would like to see the CLT be the regional hub for innovative teaching in the region.
The way students are learning and the way faculty are teaching is changing across the globe. And I think CLT is in a great place to take this change forward, to support faculty in the classroom, and to enable students to learn the way they want to learn.
Now for the jewel on the crown. Today we have the honor of having Dr. Paul Prinsloo giving us the keynote speech. He's a research professor in open and distance learning in the College of Economic and Management Sciences at the University of South Africa, UNISA. The academic background includes fields as diverse as theology, art history, business management, online learning, and religious studies. Dr. Prinsloo is an established researcher and has published numerous articles in the fields of teaching and learning, student access in distance education contexts, learning analytics, and curriculum development. His current research focuses on the collection, analysis, and use of student data in learning analytics, graduate supervision, and digital identity. Paul was born curious and in trouble. Nothing has changed since then. He blogs at Open Distance and Learning, and his Twitter is at 14 Prince, well, I'll have to write it down, Prince P. Paul, did I lose you somewhere? There you are, okay. Thank you, and here. Thank you very much.
Salam alaikum, good afternoon. Goeiemiddag, that's my home language. South Africa has 11 official languages, and sign language is about to be recognized as our 12th language. So I wish I could have addressed you in all 12, but I can't. Provost Abdel Rahman, Associate Provost Aziza Ilozi, the amazing staff of CLT. I wish I could steal you for UNISA. Colleagues and friends, but also the other keynotes, I would like to acknowledge the fact that it's an awkward position to be the first keynote. On the one hand, you must prepare the ground, and on the other hand, you know that if you don't entertain as much as you expected me to entertain you, or provoke you, or enlighten you, Nakla and Tim will fill the gaps. So maybe I just need to explain my dress code. I started as an administrative officer at UNISA, and on Mondays and Fridays, I used to wear a bow tie. And then all the students would call me professor. And I quite liked that. And then I became an instructional designer, and then I became a research professor, and then now I don't wear the bow tie anymore, and now I'm just Mr. Paul. So I quite enjoy dressing up, and seeing that is your festival and the 15-year celebration, I thought it suits the occasion to look for my bow ties, figure out how to tie them again, and then to acknowledge you as my hosts. Let me just say that this morning I was amazed at what CLT and the staff of this university is doing with technology, and their passion and their dedication. It's really, really amazing, and I would like to congratulate you. I was drooling where I was sitting. I drool when I hear of classes of 21. I am amazed that you can use student feedback systems. We have 350,000 students. We have 6,000 staff. Some of our classes are 14,000 students in the introductory microeconomics course. And we teach those 14,000 students in a 12-week semester with 2 assignments and 1 summative examination of 2 hours. And you complain about 21 students? Aziza, do you have a job for me here? I would love to join. So, just lastly, before I start the presentation, in medieval times, during a festival or a village carnival, they crowned one of the village inhabitants, most probably the fool. For that day, he was often mostly a male. He would be king for the day. And he ruled and he made rules and everyone had fun. So today is my day that they crowned the fool in the audience to be a king for 45 minutes. So let's go. So I do not own the copyright of any of the images used in my presentation. I published the presentation this morning on SlideShare, and you're welcome to reuse and change or just forget. Just an overview of the presentation. I would like us to think about laptops in the classroom and dinosaurs. There's a link, trust me. I would like to share some thoughts about dreaming of losing control. Maybe it's a nightmare. I want us to consider why we need, want, and have to know that students are learning. What's behind this question? Why do we want to know that they're learning? I want to present a short case study of broken data, broken lenses, and broken hopes, and I don't have a conclusion. This was published in 2017 fall. Should professors ban laptops? That's not a problem we have at home. We need the laptops. But you may have this issue that you may have considered, should professors ban laptops in class? How classroom computer use affects student learning. And then this article says, we do not claim that all computer use in the classroom is harmful. Exercises where computers or tablets are deliberately used may, in fact, improve in performance. Rather, our results relate to classes where using computers or tablets for note-taking is optional. And yet, they continue to, let me just go one back. Laptops are great, but not during a lecture or a meeting. Measuring, and while this article says it's not great, you should not bring the laptop into the classroom, it says measuring the effect of these laptops is actually very difficult, and yet they have a very strong opinion about it. One problem is that students don't all use students or the laptops in the same way. And then it says, but a growing body of evidence show that overall, college students learn less when they use computers or tablets during lectures. They also tend to earn worse grades, and the research is unequivocal. Laptops are bad. Haven't we been here before? In 2016, this was published. No, banning laptops is not the answer. In 2014, I found this article, if I would just get there. In 2014, we've been down this road before, considering the effect of laptops in classrooms, and yet we have a very short memory. In 2014, it was reported from 2011 already. If classroom time is primarily characterized by lectures, why would you do that? But anyway, if classroom time is primarily characterized by lectures, then laptops are probably a distraction. And if students bring them to class for note-taking, it is quite likely. If I write an article like that in a scholarly journal, it will not be published. They would say the evidence are inconclusive, and yet this is published in the New York Times and in all our media. So the object in the rearview mirror may be closer than it is. And it's not technology, it's not laptops. I have a question that what may be haunting us isn't that they aren't learning, but that we are not solely in control of their learning, as if we ever were. But I think that's possibly simplistic. Losing control is not the only reason why we're worried whether they're learning or not. That's not the only reason. I do think we need to consider, why do we need and want and have to know that they are learning? What is behind this question that we have? Because we can know. Why do we need to know that they learn? Because metrics make the world go round. We know all the unbearable lightness of arrogance. We have the tools, that's the reason why we want to know. Our students are broken and need to be fixed, don't kill me now. We want to understand, listen and act, and we want to understand, I don't know what happened to the W. It's possibly in my room. We want to understand where and how we can help them to do it better. So though I suspect that we fear of losing control, I think the answer is possibly among those 7. Let's just quickly run through them. Why do we want to know that they are learning? Because we can know. For the first time in history, we have more data than ever before. As learning increasingly moves online, and the we includes Silicon Valley, it includes governments, data brokers, commercial entities, and higher education, and Blackboard, have access to huge amounts of intersecting and often mutually constitutive data. And we own their data. And we are owned. Try to get out of the agreement with Blackboard and see what happens to your data. Try to move to another learning management platform and see what were the fine print below. So we are owned. The learning management systems we use have become a treasure trove of data that we can process, scrape, clean. Listen to the words we use. Process, scrape, clean, dissect, mine, massage to find patterns, and at times to make fit those patterns to our assumptions, whether they're learning or not. So why do we need to know that they learn? Because we can. We have the data. We have access to increasing volumes, variety, velocity of data, and this allows us to expand on the traditional scope of institutional research with regard to student data, but also to infer relationships unthinkable of a few years ago. We can now say there's a link between their logging data and the time they log in at night, and their gender, and their home address, and possibly their Facebook account, and their tax returns, and whether they have medical insurance, and whether they have a criminal record. So we can make these inferred relationships unheard of before, and that has implications for what we know and what we want to know. And there is a danger that we mistake the noise for the signal. We have access to so much. We can really check their sleeping patterns and not realize that the noise pollutes our data with false alarms and setting back our ability to understand how the system really works. Reason 2, because metrics make the world go round. This is a book by David Beer in 2016, and I read it on a plane here. 6 hours to Addis Ababa and another 5 hours to Cairo, so I finished reading the book. And he says we are created and recreated by metrics. We live through them, within them. Metrics facilitate the making and the unmaking of judgments about us, the judgments we make of ourselves and the consequences of those judgments as they are felt and experienced in our lives. We play with metrics and we are more often played by them. So when I apply metrics to student performance and to their learning, we define what is true and then we use that to verify the truth. So it's a Mobius cord. We get back to where we started. And we can only know and we measure, and when we know, we have the power to claim understanding, to define what is true, and based on this truth, we assign positions, class, potentials, and futures that often lock individuals into fulfilling our truths about them. And by measuring and allocating value, we can find those students who do not fit in our normal distribution curves. And we can isolate them and define them as abnormal and not normal and costing us too much and as not belonging in higher education. So evidence-based education seems to favor a very technocratic model in which it's assumed that the only relevant questions are about the effectiveness of educational means and techniques. And we forget that what is effective is not necessarily desirable or appropriate. And please read these 2 articles by Gerd Piesta, one published in 2007, Why What Works Won't Work, Evidence Practice and a Democratic Deficit in Educational Research. When I report to my provost or my head of department, he or she wants to know whether something worked, whether there's a direct correlation between the use of this technology and student success. And I don't think that's the right question. And then he followed this up with why what works still won't work, from evidence-based education to value-based education. Our institutional rituals of verification sanction those of us who measure frequently, those of us who are measured frequently, and for all of us who submit our reports to those who need our data to exist. So I go through this ritual of verification twice a year where my performance is agreed upon and managed and measured. And I'm fitted as normal or abnormal. And all this data is feeding this ritual for those who need my data to exist. The third reason is because we know everything. When the institutional learning management system remembers not a walled garden, but increasingly Foucault's panopticon, where our tracking systems and recommender engines watch out over their every move. This was published in 2017, tracking every student's every move. We want to know when they go to the toilet, when they go to the library, when they go to the restaurant. We want to know what they bought, how many hamburgers they eat per week, and correlate that with their student success. And we may find that eating cheese affects your chances of success. And because we think we can know everything, we feed our data fetish, believing that more data are always better data. We believe that bigger data gives us a total picture where if our sample is big enough, that there's nothing we cannot know. We believe that data are neutral and objective and not as subjective as human decisions. They're based on experience, intuition, and wisdom. We create data proxies for that which we cannot measure. And we quantify these. We think finding patterns is enough, and we never care to ask why. And this epistemological arrogance leads us to see Jesus in a piece of toast. That is what big data does. It allows us to see patterns where there is no pattern. And it depends on whether you believe. And we call that apophenia, seeing patterns where none actually exist, simply because enormous quantities of data can offer connections that radiate in all different directions. So we think we know everything. The more data we have, the more we can intervene. And it's not necessarily true. Because data is broken. It's incomplete. We never know everything. And yet the decisions we make about our students' lives, we pretend as if the logging data combined with their eating of cheese and their Facebook profile determines their success. The data are broken. The fourth reason, because we have the tools. There's three sources of data. There's a directed form, a digital form of surveillance, wherein the gaze of technology is focused on a person or placed by a human operator. You looking at what they're doing on the learning management system. Automated, what an algorithm or a artificial intelligence picks up from their behavior online, and then volunteered. And there's a beautiful concept that someone wrote to say, we are all digitally promiscuous. We share information with each other and on social media that we should never have shared and that we can never take back. So we have these free sources of information that makes us believe that we know everything, and we have the tools to harness all that data. And we want to move away from what happened to why did it happen, to what will happen, to how can we make it happen. And you know what is a danger about this is that if we cut out the second one, why did it happen? If we think we have enough data that we don't need to say why, but we know what happened, we get to what will happen without reasoning or knowing why it happened. And I think with every layer of analytics, with every tool that we apply to this data, the ethics get more concerning. Reason 5, because our students are broken and needs fixing. This was published last year, 2017, November. Higher education should be like hospitals using precision medicine. Because students are broken, they're sick, and we're there to heal them. And just look at this quote. Focused hospitals are built around a very specific value-adding process activity. They take incomplete or broken parts and then transform them into more complete outputs of higher value, most probably for the market, while charging a fee for the outcome. And the proposal is that we should be like hospitals, precision medicine just for you, sir. If you buy this product now, you will be better. A more obedient citizen that plays a role in the economies of this country. And this is how I feel about that. Reasons, oh, not that phase again. Reasons, oh, reason 6, because we want to. So these were the negatives. I really believe we want to know that students learned and are learning because we want to understand. We really want to listen. We really want to act. We want to know what we can do. It's not about students. We want to know that they learn because we want to know what we can do different, what we can do better or stop doing. We want to know how we can and when we should stop back, step in, not do anything, intervene, nudge and care. And I think I can live with this. As an educator, I want to know that my students learn because I care very deeply about things that I can do better. Not because they're broken, but things that I can do better. We know that we cannot cause learning to happen. We can occasion learning. We can create spaces and occasions where learning can happen. We know that there's a lot of learning that we plan for that does not happen. Sorry to break this news to you, but there's a lot of learning you plan for that does not happen. And some of the learning we plan for may happen, often despite our failures and missed opportunities. And we also know that there's a lot of learning that we did not plan for that actually happens. That's why I want to know that students learn, because I know of the magic of teaching. 7th reason, the last, and I'm heading towards a close, we want to understand where and how we can help them to be better. So we really want to know what we can do. There is a danger that they don't need Superwoman or Superman. And this is a quote from a student, if you have come to help us, you can go home. If you have come to accompany us, please come, let's talk. So it takes away the agency from me, and if I want to accompany them in making sense of their journey, I'm welcome. But they don't need Superwoman, and they don't need Superman. So what are the implications, colleagues, that when we use their data points to describe, diagnose, predict, and prescribe their learning journeys without ever asking them what these data points mean to them and what data would matter to them to allow them to make better choices? We need to report the amount of logging detail. I have to report how many of my students haven't logged on their course site within the first week after registration. That's my duty. But that doesn't say anything about their learning. So what data do we have that could help them to make better choices of their learning? So responsible and ethical learning analytics, and learning analytics is the collection, the analysis, and the use of student data. Responsible and ethical learning analytics is found in the nexus between their stories and ours. We cannot afford to ignore the fact that it's their data, their aspirations, their learning journeys, and that our data collection, analysis, and use may not tell the whole story. I cannot use the number of loggings to determine student success if I haven't spoken to the student. Tell me again why you want to measure their learning. So let me wrap up by the following. So now that we said there's different reasons why we want to know, there's good reasons and there's reasons that are not good. But it is a valid question that we can say, but do they learn? And I would just like to present a very short case study of broken data, broken lenses, and broken hope. 3 weeks into a 12-week fully online course, and I'm wondering as an instruction, are they learning? I don't see them in the class. I can't use a student feedback system. So all I have is their logging data, their number of downloads. So 3 weeks into this 12-week course, I must make sense of that data and ask, according to our structure, our criteria, and what we can and want to measure, are they learning? And this is what it looks like. There's 6 students, 7 students. The first student, that's 3 weeks into the class, logged in 30 times on the right. There's a student that visited logging 27 times, 21, 55 times, and then there's a student that visited 9 topics on the left, but logged in 31 times. So that student that read the least topics, or the least amount of topics, had logged in the most. What is happening there? Another 6 students. There's a student that 3 weeks in the course hasn't had any activity. What does it mean, and what responsibility do I have as an instructor to respond to that data? Are they inactive? Are they just a dropout? The words we use to describe the students based on that data? What is my responsibility? Look at student J, he visited 7 of 200 topics, logged in only 4 times in over 3 weeks. And then student L is very interesting, visited 18 times, but logging 12, or visited 18 topics, but logged in 12 times. So what is, then this is my question, if I can just get back to that phase, what does this mean? But the plot thickens. Let me give you Exhibit C. Let's drill down on student A. You would see that he or she visited 71 topics of 200, logged in 30 times. The first assignment, she or he scored 95%. There was a skill builder exercise that they had to submit a mind map. He or she got 100%. They had to submit a biography, 100%. What does that mean compared to this student? Oh, the same student. Over 3 weeks, this student visited 166 times. She spent 6 hours, 38 minutes, 53 seconds on the site. What does it mean? Is she female? Is she male? Where does she live? How does it talk? How many dependents does she have? What time of the night does she log on? Does it matter? I think it does, but before we jump to conclusions, we need to find out what is their narrative. She read, over 3 weeks, she read 521 posts. She created 11 original posts, and she replied to 54 other posts. That's highly engaged. Compare this with this student, student J, that only submitted 2 assignments over the 3 weeks, a very basic assignment of the biography and the tutorial, 100%, visited 7 topics of 200, and spent only 15 minutes over 3 weeks. Houston, we have a problem. There's something happening. I cannot say what is happening, and I cannot predict her student success if I haven't spoken to her, or him. I must find out. Over 3 weeks, he or she read 16 posts, 2 threads, 1 reply. Something is not happening, and we need to find out why. And at the end of a 12-week course, have they learned? That's the logging data of a student that completed his or her course with 94% average over 12 weeks. They read 884 post and replied 95 times. Days visited 51. What does this mean? Can we now say to students, if you want to be successful in this course, our research shows that you need to log in 51 days over a 12-week semester. We cannot. Students are different. If this data tell a story, whose story is it? Is this a whole story? Who is listening? And what did we miss? I conclude. I blogged this in 2016 in the same course, failing our students, not noticing the traces they leave behind. At that stage, I had 15 students in the class. I was the only instructor. And 5 weeks into the class, I discovered that the student hasn't submitted free assignments. And suddenly, I was marking other assignments. I was responding to other students' posts. I was finding content. I was guiding students. I was counseling students. I was there. And I didn't notice that he fell silent. I thought I cared. I thought I was there. But I did not notice him or her falling behind. I had access to data about his or her engagement, and somehow I didn't notice. So colleagues, when a world is reduced to numbers, a measure to what is calculable and laid before us, when humans are summed, aggregated and accounted for, then much remains forgotten, unsaid and concealed. Please tell me again, why do you want to know that they are learning? And how will you know? And why does it matter to you? I thank you.
We take questions from the audience. Maybe need one too. Questions? Yes. Yes.
I think you've really shaken the concept that we can know with what we know at the moment. Yeah, that's true. That you never know the whole picture. But also what we teach in the classroom, and I'm sure you know, that is just a minuscule of the actual learning that happens in the student's body. So why they are falling behind or not learning actually would lie outside the classroom. And as most theorists know, that if you ask in the audience anybody, what was your most important learning in your life and where did you learn it? It is rarely in a classroom. The answers are mostly what they have learned outside is actually what changed their life. So I guess there's a lot that you're saying and a lot of reason for further thinking on thinking that we know what we are doing and we have the answers. Very good, Paul.
Thank you.
Do you have any other? Yes.
I want to thank you for asking all these questions. I think it's really important. But you touched on something that we're all concerned with, that we are in a system that rewards measurement, and the existence of our jobs depends on measuring and showing, like you said, our performance, both in the classroom of our students. Our accreditation depends on showing evidence of that learning happening in our students. So if we want to move the needle on that structure, what do you think we can do?
Wonderful question. I think there was a debate on Digital Pedagogy Lab where the question was, should we grade assignments? And I cannot not grade assignments. It's required. They want a percentage. And I'm not quite sure what the difference between 73 and 75 is. Actually, I don't know what the difference between 70 and 75 is. So it's really messy. So I try to grade in 5s or 10s. I try to grade in competent or not competent or resubmit. I try to grade in broader categories within the system. I try to provide students first with feedback and 2 weeks later with their mark. I found that to be useful. It impacts immensely on my program. And I must plan carefully because the grades have to be submitted by a certain date to my administrative department. So that brings all my assessment 2 weeks earlier. So I try to send my students earlier verbal feedback on their assignments. And then later I would send them the mark. So just, we work in this society. I would love to work in a small liberal art college where I could play. But how does that work with 14,000 students over a 12-week semester? And so how scalable is our caring? In 14,000 students over a 12-week semester, I must rely on that data. But as it's humanly impossible to engage with that data, I need help. So I need an algorithm. I need a computer-based system to analyze the data and almost select the students that haven't logged on the first week and send them an automated email to say, we see you haven't logged on. Is there a problem? We care. If you need to speak to student counseling, this is a number, toll-free. If you need to administration, toll-free. If they haven't responded after that email, an algorithm can pick it up and send another email and say, can we call you? I would rather have that email than no response from the institution. So I think within our constraints of administration and the metric system and the dangers of algorithms, we must find a way to make use of that data, but also find out what it means and what their silences mean and what we don't know.
Thank you very much, Paul. And Paul will be here for the next 2 days. You can find him around in this area if you'd like to talk to him a little bit more. Thank you so much.